This is Hannibal from the HannibalTV.com, and I just finished watching Chris Jericho's shoot interview, I guess you could call it, on Howie Mandell's Does Stuff podcast, I guess you could call it. Which, by the way, I got to throw in a shot here. I do have more subscribers than Howie Mandel. But I just kind of stumbled upon the interview, but I thought it was very good. I watched the whole thing. I would even venture to say it was the best interview I've seen of Chris Jericho's, including there is one that he did that was on this channel with John Paz about a year or so ago regarding, I think, his record book that he put out. If people want to watch that one, I don't know if I'll ever interview him, so I'll review this interview. He talked. There is some newsworthy stuff he talked about. Howie Mandel does this podcast with his daughter. The daughter showed up late to the podcast, which was a running joke throughout the whole thing. There's definitely a big sign in this that CM Punk's gone, because the daughter had researched that there was some type of real fight in the company Jericho's in now, and they asked him about it. And he indicated that sometimes people have to go, that disrupt the dressing room. People don't always get along. And yeah, it seems pretty much a done thing that CM Punk is not coming back. It's just a matter of whatever they can work out for his no compete, I suspect. He also talked about an incident in Japan where someone was stiffing him and he had to hit them for real with a chair to calm down when they were asking him about stuff that could have been real. Howie did bring up how are wrestlers not in the Screen Actors Guild union, because Howie brought up that AEW is on TBS, and Chris Jericho discussed in the podcast that he wrote his own stuff. So yes, it seems like Chris Jericho pretty much, it's a good deal for him. From what I understand, he makes about $3 million a year, and basically writes his own stuff in AEW. But how he brought up, you're saying it's a television show where you're performing written material. Isn't that something that the Screen Actors Guild should cover, and shouldn't it be unionized? And yeah, Jericho said there was positives and negatives to it, and he didn't really want to get into it. Obviously, Jericho is very secure, so he doesn't need to worry about any union. But Howie was like, are they not unionized because they still want to pretend wrestling's real? He's like indicating that kind of stuff, and he's like, no, that's long gone. I don't think anyone's pretending wrestling's real anymore. They're all saying wrestlers are actors, and it's pretty much a stuntman show. Well, stuntmen are unionized. So I think these wrestling companies that are making so much money, particularly WWE, should eventually have to have the wrestlers be part of the actors union. It's ridiculous that they're not. Jericho mentioned that he had a gold record for Fozzy for the Judas album, over 500 sold, and that was very cool to him. Apparently, they were both on this show called Tanked, where they got free fish tanks, but apparently all the fish died in both of their tanks, and Howie kept his tank, but Chris Jericho ended up selling his tank for a small amount of money, even though it was worth like $50,000 or something. I think I forget exactly what he sold it for. It might have been $1,000, because he said all the fish that he kept putting in this tank kept dying, and it was upsetting his kids. I actually had an experience like that, but I won't digress into it because it's it's a story that I won't get into today. He feels that Logan Paul is a good thing for Logan Paul to be involved in wrestling, and anyone that doesn't see it as good does not realize that wrestling is a wrestling business, and he's bringing more eyes to the product, bringing more money to the product. He thinks Jake Paul is a real boxer, and he mentions about the haters, that he has and popular people have haters. Not everyone's going to like everything everybody does. He nearly died from a blood clot issue in England, I believe, last year, and had to be hospitalized for a week. He was then on a medical diet. He's on a special medical diet now. That's why he's leaned out so much lately. It's related to his medical issues. He's got twin 16-year-old daughters. One of them has a boyfriend. He thinks that he might have been abducted by aliens at one point because he experienced some time displacement, and he might in the future go to a hypnotist or something and try and figure out what happened in the time displacement. Hello, Hassan. Maximus Media, is it must-see material? It depends on your taste. As I said, I wasn't actually planning on watching the whole thing. I used to like Howie Mandell, and I'm interested in Chris Jericho. He's one of the top wrestlers in the business, and he's unlike Roman Reigns, and I'm not dissing Roman Reigns, but Jericho has transcended wrestling to become part of popular culture through music and all the various other shows he's done over the years. So, I mean, I'm always interested to hear what he has to say. Wolf says the EVPs need to go immediately. Apparently, they're bringing back Omega and the Bucks the next pay-per-view, from what I understand. Jericho shouldn't have the influence he's having. Well, they got to give him what he wants to keep him happy. He's the biggest star they have. I just said he's the only guy they have that's known in popular culture. CM Punk was somewhat, but for bad reasons. CM Punk was known as the guy that got his ass kicked and was an embarrassment to UFC. Chris Jericho was not known as that. So to keep him in AEW, I think they just signed him for another 3 years. Give him whatever he wants to do. I'd probably do the same thing. Do you think Tony Khan's going to write anything better for him than he can come up with? Because I've seen the other stuff in AEW. And I'm not saying I've watched even much of Jericho's things in AEW, but I highly doubt Tony Khan could write anything better. And Jericho in WWE right now, why would he want to go somewhere where he doesn't have the freedom he has in AEW? As he said in this, helping start AEW is the closest he's ever going to be to starting his own company. Is Jericho the top Canadian wrestler today? Yes, without question. I don't even know if there's a close second. There's no close second. Chris Jericho is 100% the top. And I was just editing a video from Ted Hart, who, by the way, is about to have a appearance on Peacock and appeared on Jericho's show years ago, because I remember Jericho was one of the guys that tried to help Ted Hart get re-signed. I think I met Jericho twice. Once the first WWE extra job I ever had, when I was actually with Ted and Harry and all them, where it was just a handshake. And the second was at he gave a speech at the WWE tryout in Tampa that I actually got signed from, because he lived in Tampa, I guess, and they wanted a WWE wrestler to come in and talk about what it was like working for WWE. But yeah, I would also say the most successful dungeon talent from the last dungeon class, which Ted talks about and Bruce Hardis talked about, which included Ted, Harry, Tyson Kidd, me, Rick Richter from the Ascension, Natalia, and Randy Myers, who was had some success in that Seattle promotion, Defy, and he was actually also signed from the same tryout I was signed for by WWE, but he failed the drug test for pot. Never got another chance, but he was a decent talent. And you could say that Jinder Mahal and Raj Singh, Gamma Singh's Jr. were kind of part of it, but they weren't actually trained in the dungeon. They were just in Stampede at those times. They were trained by Bad News Allen. But I would say Natalia was the most successful by far from my class of the dungeon, which was the last class. And it's funny because everyone thought it was going to be Ted and Harry. But I think that Natalia by far had the best. And by the way, Nelson, I'm glad I'm putting you to sleep. Just fall asleep while you're still watching, because I need you guys to keep making me money. So thanks for tuning in and writing the comment and helping get this boosted. Piper's sleeping too, but I still love her. I love her enough to wake her up to show her on this. And I won't put any more of you guys to sleep. I'm going to get back to editing that video I was just talking about.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews